The narrative opens in the heart of a gloomy, mist-shrouded forest, where the silence is heavy with the scent of death. Amidst the gnarled roots and dark undergrowth, the bodies of fallen knights lie scattered, their white and gold armor stained and broken. A figure steps into the clearing, his boots crunching on the forest floor as he surveys the carnage. He remarks with a heavy heart that they are too late. This is Celestial Gavis, a being of immense power serving as weapon support. He is a tall, dark-skinned elf with stark facial markings and flowing white hair, clad in intricate white and gold ceremonial armor. Beside him stands his companion, Celestial Morgana, also a weapons support and Gavis' respected teacher. She is draped in a thick, cream-colored cloak with a green gem embedded in her shoulder armor, her face partially obscured by a hood and a visor that hides her eyes. Gavis observes the devastation closely, his eyes narrowing as he identifies the jagged marks left on the trees and the brutal nature of the knight's wounds. He concludes that these are the telltale signs of an attack by Hypogeans, the sworn enemies of the Celestials. His expression tightens with frustration as he realizes the gravity of the situation. The weapons they were meant to protect have been stolen. Morgana, ever the sharp observer, calls out to him, drawing his attention to a faint sign of life among the fallen. She alerts him that there are still survivors. Gavis rushes to the base of a large tree where a knight in silver armor is slumped, clutching a grievous wound on his abdomen. The knight is barely conscious, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Gavis kneels beside him, offering support, while Morgana stands guard. The dying soldier struggles to speak, revealing the disastrous news. The Hypogeans have taken the weapons and are transporting them to a location known as the Cradle of Truth. Desperate to save the man, Gavis places a glowing hand over the knight's chest, commanding him not to move as he attempts to channel healing magic. He urges the soldier to hold on, but the damage is too severe. The knight, hunched over in pain, uses his final breath to beg them to stop the enemy, before his body goes limp. Silence reclaims the forest as the knight passes away. Gavis gently closes the soldier's helmet visor, his face solemn. He offers a final prayer, wishing for his brothers to rest in peace. Rising to his feet, Gavis channels his celestial energy, and a soft blue light begins to emanate from the ground around the fallen bodies. He recites a benediction, asking for their unblemished souls to return to the mountains. Wisps of azure light rise from the corpses, swirling upward into the canopy like fireflies, carrying the spirits of the fallen away from the bloody battlefield. As the ritual concludes, Gavis and Morgana leave the clearing, the weight of their failure hanging over them. As they walk through the darkened woods, Morgana decides it is time to explain the true nature of the cargo they lost. Gavis asks if she knows the history of the two weapons they were escorting. When he remains silent, she begins to recount a little-known chapter of history. She transports the narrative back 2,000 years, to an era known as the Age of Arcana. In this time, mortals lived on par with the gods, and the Lightbearers possessed extensive knowledge of advanced magic. Their civilization reached a pinnacle of power that fueled an ever-growing ambition. Visuals of this era depict a grand, sun-drenched society where mortals stood tall, no longer revering the divine. Instead of worship, they sought to overthrow the gods. To counter the Celestials, the Lightbearers forged two specific weapons. Morgana explains that these artifacts were unique because they could harness the power of the cosmos itself, a force so primordial and overwhelming that even the gods could not directly oppose it. The imagery shifts to show silhouetted figures worshipping beneath the radiant glow of two star-shaped energy sources, bound by chains yet pulsing with potential. However, there was a limitation. To activate these god-killing weapons, a tremendous amount of magical energy was required. To solve this, the Lightbearers erected a massive, crystal-embedded structure designed specifically to charge the weapons. This structure was named the Cradle of Truth. Returning to the present, Morgana continues her explanation as they navigate the forest. She reveals that the Celestials had received intelligence about this plan centuries ago. They raided the Cradle of Truth before the charging process could be completed, successfully thwarting the mortals' rebellion. Gavis asks what became of the weapons after that raid. Morgana explains that the Lightbearers managed to hide them in a place unknown to the Celestials, but the gods never gave up the search. The scene shifts to a visualization of the current threat. Morgana emphasizes that these weapons are far too dangerous to exist. If they were to fall into the hands of the wicked, the consequences would be catastrophic for the world. She explains that not long ago, the Celestials finally located the hidden artifacts and planned to secretly transport them back to the safety of the sacred mountains. Tragically, the Hypogeans somehow intercepted this intelligence. A terrifying image manifests of a monstrous, demonic Hypogean with jagged horns and glowing blue eyes, clutching two golden, box-like artifacts bound in purple chains. Morgana confirms that the weapons have been seized and are being taken to the ancient cradle of truth. The Hypogeans' intentions are crystal clear. They intend to finish what the Lightbearers started and fully charge the weapons. Having laid out the stakes, Morgana stops and issues a command. She decides to split their forces. She will return immediately to the hunting camp to seek reinforcements. Gavis is tasked with following the Hypogeans' trail, tracking them down, and rendezvousing with her at the Cradle of Truth. As she turns to leave, her cape flowing behind her, she offers a stern warning: if he spots the Hypogeans, he must not act recklessly. Her expression darkens under her hood as she gives him a final, grim directive. She tells him to try to buy time, but if the worst happens and the situation becomes untenable, he is to destroy the two weapons on the spot. Gavis acknowledges the order and immediately sets off, moving with supernatural speed. He dashes through the forest, the wind whistling past his ears as he weaves through the trees. His hand rests ready near his weapon, his senses heightened to the limit. Suddenly, he skids to a halt. His elven ears twitch as he picks up a distinct scent carried on the breeze, an unmistakable Hypogean scent. Moving with absolute stealth, Gavis creeps behind a large tree. Peering around the bark, he spots a figure in the distance. The target is moving stealthily through the underbrush, clad in a dark cloak with red accents. Convinced this is one of the Hypogean raiders, Gavis narrows his eyes, his heterochromatic eyes, one orange, one blue, locking onto his prey. Without hesitation, Gavis launches himself from his hiding spot. He strikes like a thunderbolt, tackling the cloaked figure from behind. The force of the impact sends them both flying, crashing through the foliage and tumbling down a small incline. They wrestle on the ground, a blur of white and red fabric, until Gavis manages to pin the stranger to the forest floor. Gavis looms over his captive, his face twisted in anger and urgency. He demands to know where the others are, and where they have taken the weapons. However, as the dust settles, the figure beneath him is revealed not to be a monstrous demon, but a pale-skinned man with dark hair and wide, confused eyes. The stranger, looking completely bewildered by the assault, shouts back, asking who Gavis is. The pinned man frantically insists that he is not who Gavis is looking for. The scene opens with a Hypogean named Eugene sitting bound against a tree, his wrists tied securely with golden rope. He looks up with an expression of feigned confusion, asking what he possibly did to deserve this. Standing over him, the celestial Gavis holds the end of the rope, his expression one of stern annoyance. Eugene tries to negotiate, asking if they can just talk about it, but Gavis is in no mood for games. He yanks the rope taut, commanding the prisoner to stop playing the fool. Gavis leans in close, his golden armor gleaming against the forest shadows. He accuses the Hypogean directly, stating that not long ago, his people attacked a transport team and stole the weapons. He adds that Eugene showing up here is certainly no coincidence. Sweat drops down Eugene's face as he stammers nervously, asking, "What weapon?" He insists he has no idea what Gavis is talking about. But then, a realization strikes him. He asks if Gavis is referring to that idiot Conrad. Eugene admits he did see something, a bunch of them carrying two shiny golden boxes, which he thought was strange. Eugene continues, muttering that while Conrad may be crude, he isn't tacky enough to design such things himself. He deduces that they must have looted the boxes from the Pigeonheads. A derogatory name the Hypogeans use for celestials. Gavis has heard enough. He tightens the rope again, pulling Eugene's face close to his own, and demands to know where the companions went. Eugene is quick to clarify his stance, stating firmly that he is not in cahoots with Conrad and would actually be glad to see that idiot out of the picture. Seeing an opening, Eugene proposes a deal. He suggests that if Gavis lets him go, he will tell him where the others went, and they can part ways. Gavis stares him down, his heterochromatic eyes narrowing. He summons a majestic golden staff that manifests in his hand and flatly rejects the offer. He tells Eugene that there will be no parting of ways. Instead, the Hypogean will take him to the thieves personally. Eugene looks alarmed as the ropes around him begin to sparkle with magical energy. He shouts, asking what Gavis is doing. Gavis ignores him, channeling blue energy into his hand. The ropes binding Eugene glow brightly, shifting and loosening. Eugene stands up, rubbing his wrists, the magical bindings now gone. Gavis orders him to move. Eugene grumbles but agrees, noting that he can track them down and that it just so happens Conrad has something belonging to him as well. Suddenly, Eugene points into the dense trees, shouting that they went in that direction. As Gavis turns his gaze to follow the finger, the sound of a heavy impact echoes through the clearing. In a flash, Eugene is sprinting away, leaving a trail of red energy in his wake. He laughs triumphantly as he dashes through the woods, believing he has outsmarted his captor. He doesn't get far. Eugene stops mid-stride, sweat pouring down his face, as he senses something wrong. He looks back in shock. Gavis stands perfectly still in the distance, his hand extended. A thin, glowing blue cord of energy stretches all the way from the Celestial's hand to Eugene's body. As Gavis pulls his hand back, an invisible force yanks Eugene backward with a rushing sound. He flies through the air shouting, "Pigeonhead, what are you doing to me?" Gavis catches the reeling Hypogean and smiles with grim satisfaction. He tells Eugene he knew he was a liar, so he used a device to bind them together. Eugene looks at the magical tether and asks what this blasted thing is. Gavis explains that it is the Scales of Benevolence, an artifact crafted by the artisan Anseal. Holding up a golden, dagger-like object, Gavis elaborates on its power. He explains that it links any two objects in the world, restraining them to one another. Once they stray too far apart, an energy bond activates to pull them back. But there is a more severe consequence. Gavis states that their lives are now bound together. If he gets hurt, Eugene will suffer the same damage. To demonstrate, Gavis pricks his own finger with the sharp point of the artifact. Instantly, Eugene yells in pain and clutches his own hand, feeling the injury as if it were his own. Realizing he is truly trapped, Eugene sighs in resignation. He admits he doesn't have much of a choice and agrees to take Gavis to find Conrad. However, he insists on a new deal. Once they find him, Gavis must lift the bond and let him go. Gavis is skeptical, arguing that if released, Eugene will surely team up with the other Hypogeans. Gavis counters that he will only let Eugene go after he retrieves the weapons. Gavis stands tall, crossing his arms. He agrees to the terms but adds a condition. He will only agree to release Eugene this once. If they meet again in the future, they will still be enemies. Gavis warns that he won't show any mercy then. Eugene grins slyly and accepts the deal but demands that Gavis swear to it in the name of the goddess Dura. Solemnly, Gavis places a hand over his heart and swears in the name of Dura, warning the Hypogean to try no more tricks. The unlikely duo sets off walking through the woods, the blue magical tether swinging between them. Eugene leads the way, assuring Gavis that he will keep his word and help find the weapons, Gavis remarking that he isn't foolish enough to trust the word of a Hypogean either. Eugene glances back with a smirk, adding that he'll keep an eye on Gavis every step of the way, claiming that sometimes Hypogeans are more trustworthy than pigeonheads. Gavis, visibly irritated, snaps at him to just show the way as time is ticking. Eugene reverts to a playful demeanor for a moment, complaining that Gavis is such a killjoy. As they trek deeper into the forest, Eugene tries to break the ice again. He asks to make one small request. Instead of being called Hypogean all the time, he wants to be called by his name, Eugene. Gavis curtly replies, "Enough talking, Hypogean." Undeterred, Eugene suggests they loosen up since they will be together for a while. He asks for Gavis's name in return. When met with silence, Eugene shrugs and decides he will just call him Pigeonhead, noting that's how he has always referred to his kind. Before Gavis can respond to the taunt, a piercing scream rips through the forest air, causing both Eugene and Gavis to freeze in their tracks. They look toward the source of the sound in shock and confusion, the sudden danger interrupting their banter. The scene opens amidst the towering trees, where the canopy blocks out much of the sky, casting the forest floor in gloom. A massive, gray-skinned demon with crimson hair and twisting horns towers over a group of human soldiers. The creature's eyes glow with a menacing blue light as he sneers down at the trembling mortals, his voice dripping with contempt as he bellows for the humans to get lost. Hidden in the thick foliage above, two figures observe the confrontation. Eugene, who watches with a look of mild annoyance. Beside him is Celestial Gavis, a darker-skinned elf with golden hair and ornate white and gold armor, who looks on with concern. Gavis sighs, noting that the idiot Conrad causes a ruckus wherever he goes. Down below, the human captain, clad in green armor and gripping a sword, stammers in recognition. He identifies the monster as a Hypogean, his fear evident but his resolve holding firm as he shouts for the creature to get the hell out of their land. The captain's bravery, however, is met with brutal swiftness. The screen goes black for a split second, filled only by the sickening sound of impact and the spray of blood. When the visual returns, two soldiers stand frozen in horror, whispering for their captain. On the forest floor, the captain's body lies crumpled and lifeless, blood pooling beneath him. High in the trees, Eugene turns to his companion with a look of disdain, calling him a pigeonhead, and asking what he thinks he is doing. But Gavis has already made his move. He dives from the branch, his cape fluttering behind him. Below, the Hypogean, Conrad, roars with primal fury, swinging a massive, purple energy-wreathed axe downward to crush the remaining soldiers. Just before the weapon can annihilate them, a burst of blinding golden light erupts. Gavis lands between the monster and the humans. The impact hisses as holy light meets dark force. Conrad pulls back, his expression shifting from bloodlust to intrigue as he realizes he is facing a celestial. Behind the savior, the two surviving soldiers clutch their spears, shaking uncontrollably. Conrad's gaze shifts back, locking onto a heavy golden chest being carried by a smaller, purple-skinned demon in the background. The box is bound in chains, and seeing it threatened, Conrad barks an order to his minions to kill the intruder. He prepares to strike again, but suddenly, a sharp slashing sound cuts through the air. A projectile strikes Conrad's shoulder with a heavy thwack, drawing his attention upward. Eugene drops from the canopy, landing gracefully with a smirk on his face. He greets the warlord casually, saying, "Hey there, Conrad, long time no see." Conrad's face twists in recognition and rage. He spits out Eugene's name, calling him a wretched little clown. Eugene's expression hardens into a confident grin as he declares that he is back to settle scores. Beside him, Gavis stands ready, his golden armor gleaming against the dark woods. Conrad sneers, unimpressed by the reunion. He asks if Eugene is still obsessed over the trinkets and scraps of that insignificant dwarf, or if he has perhaps become the Celestial's lapdog. Without waiting for an answer, the battle erupts. Conrad charges, his movements blurring with speed. The human soldiers attempt to fight, but the difference in power is overwhelming. Conrad's axe sweeps through the air, and with a terrible crunch, another soldier is sent flying, his body broken against the sheer force of the blow. The warlord is a whirlwind of violet energy and raw muscle. Gavis shouts for the monster to stop, stepping forward to intervene. However, Eugene holds him back, warning the pigeonhead to take it easy. He points out that the enemy has numbers on their side and that fighting head-on won't work. He reminds his righteous companion that they are there for the weapons, not a brawl. Eugene's eyes lock onto the purple demon in the background, the one struggling under the weight of the massive golden box. He outlines a quick plan. Gavis will keep Conrad busy, while Eugene grabs the cargo. Once they have the weapons, they get out. The two allies exchange a glance, Gavis stoic, Eugene determined, and then break formation. As they sprint into action, Eugene shouts, "Let's get them!" Gavis charges directly toward Conrad, drawing the warlord's fury. Conrad meets the challenge, his face contorted in a roar, purple flames dancing from his weapon. Gavis counters with his own power, unleashing a wave of holy light that swooshes through the air. The two forces collide with a deafening smash, creating a shockwave that rattles the trees. While the titans clash, Eugene leaps over the chaos, landing nimbly on the back of the purple demon, whose name is Abaddon. The demon grunts under the sudden weight. Eugene greets him with a mockingly friendly tone, noting that it has been a while. He comments that the two gold boxes look pretty heavy and suggests they take a breather to have a chat. Abaddon, furious at being used as a perch, swings a massive club backward, roaring in anger. Eugene dodges effortlessly, the club whistling through the empty air where he just was. Eugene lands gracefully on the golden box itself, balancing perfectly. He gets straight to business, asking Abaddon if he has seen a mithril pendant shaped like a gear. The demon ignores the question, his red eyes glowing as he thrashes around. Eugene tries a different approach, shouting over the monster's roars. He offers a private deal, promising to pay handsomely for the item and swearing not to breathe a word to Conrad. Abaddon's only response is a defiant roar as he tries to shake the intruder off. Smaller demons begin to surround them, closing in to support their carrier. Eugene dances atop the moving box, impressed that Abaddon is still as strong as ever despite the burden. But the situation is precarious. Eugene slips slightly, barely avoiding a crushing blow that smashes into the side of the box. He notices a cut on his arm, purple blood seeping through his sleeve. His expression tightens. This is getting dangerous. He looks back toward the main fight and yells for Pigeonhead. The situation for Gavis has turned dire. Conrad, empowered by dark fury, lands a heavy blow that sends the golden-haired warrior skidding backward across the dirt. Gavis gasps in pain, his armor scuffed and his energy waning. Conrad looms over him, a towering nightmare of muscle and malice, his axe glowing with lethal intent. Gavis lies prone, looking up helplessly as the executioner prepares the final strike. Eugene sees his partner on the ground and realizes that at this rate, they are done for. He looks down at the golden box beneath his feet and the angry demon carrying it. A desperate idea forms. He decides it is time to take a gamble. With a sharp exhale, Eugene delivers a powerful kick to the back of Abaddon's neck. The demon screams in surprise and pain. Eugene doesn't stop. He shifts his weight and kicks the golden box hard, using the momentum to topple the demon forward. "Come on, horse, let's pick up the pace!" Eugene yells as he rides the tumbling box and demon down the steep, rocky slope of the forest floor. The trio, Eugene, Abaddon, and the chest, crash through the underbrush. The sound of cracking wood and stone echoes as they careen downhill, creating a chaotic distraction. Conrad, distracted by the noise, pauses his execution. He looks over to see Eugene surfing the stolen cargo down the hill. This split second of hesitation is all Eugene needs. From his moving vantage point, Eugene extends his hand. A whip of blue magical energy shoots from his wrist, soaring across the battlefield. It wraps securely around Gavis's arm just as Conrad brings his axe down. "Let's go!" Eugene shouts, yanking the magical tether with all his might. Gavis is ripped from the ground, flying through the air away from Conrad's strike. The axe slams into the empty earth where the elf's head had been a moment before. Gavis is dragged through the air, pulled along by the momentum of Eugene and the falling box. The ground suddenly disappears beneath them. Eugene, the box, the unfortunate Abaddon, and the tethered Gavis go flying off the edge of a sheer cliff. "Aya!" Gavis screams as gravity takes hold. The camera follows them down, showing a chaotic freefall. Eugene clings to his magic whip, his red cape flapping violently. The purple demon flails helplessly, still chained to the golden box. Gavis tumbles through the air, completely at the mercy of the fall. At the top of the cliff, silence returns to the forest edge. Conrad steps to the precipice, his minions gathering nervously behind him. The warlord looks down into the abyss, his face a mask of cold, seething fury. He watches the figures disappear into the depths. His orders are calm but terrifying. He commands his troops to catch them. His eyes glow with a promise of violence, as he declares that even if they are corpses, his minions must hunt them down. From the bottom of the deep chasm, looking up at the distant sliver of light from the surface. In the gloom, Eugene's eyes snap open. He finds himself perched casually atop the unconscious body of Abaddon, the massive purple demon who cushioned his fall. Eugene looks over at his companion, the golden-haired celestial, who is sitting nearby, recovering his breath. With a look of annoyance, Eugene chides the dummy for dragging them into a fight without asking for his opinion first. He rubs his head, complaining that since his life is magically tied to the Celestials, he suffers every time the warrior courts doom. He adds that if it weren't for his quick thinking, they would both be dead already. Turning his attention to the beast beneath him, Eugene offers a mock apology to the unconscious Abaddon, remarking that he thought the brute was tough enough to handle the drop without a scratch. As he speaks, he rummages through the unconscious demon's gear. He admits he actually quite likes Abaddon, noting it's a shame his master is such a jerk. Finally, Eugene pulls a small object from the demon's possession, a mithril pendant shaped like a gear. He holds it up triumphantly, declaring he has found it. Gavis watches this, acknowledging that Eugene wasn't lying about not being in cahoots with the warlord Conrad. He asks if that pendant was the reason Eugene wanted to get back at him. Eugene stands up, clutching his prize, and dismisses the question. He states that his matters aren't important. He turns to the Celestial, addressing him as Pigeonhead, and points out that since the mission is technically over, Gavis should fulfill his promise and remove the magical blue tether connecting them. Gavis looks down at the golden staff in his hands, the artifact responsible for the bind. The central gem is making a sickening cracking sound. He stares at it in silence, his expression darkening. When Eugene presses him, asking if the artifact is misbehaving, Gavis solemnly admits, "It's broken." Eugene's jaw drops in disbelief. He stammers, asking how a divine tool could be broken by a simple fall. He begins to panic, shouting at the warrior to fix it immediately, desperate not to be tethered to a Hypogean forever. Gavis looks defeated, admitting he didn't craft the scale and doesn't know how to repair it. He suggests they hurry and leave the ravine, promising to figure out a solution once they are back on the ground. As they prepare to move out into the dark unknown, Eugene eyes Gavis with deep suspicion. He accuses the Pigeonhead of tricking him, pretending the scale is broken just to keep him on a leash and take credit for his capture later. He points out that Gavis swore in the name of his goddess, Dura, implying that her name means nothing. This strikes a nerve. Gavis instantly closes the distance, grabbing Eugene's collar and glaring at him with intense fury. He warns the Hypogean that he won't allow him to blaspheme that name. The tension spikes, but Gavis controls his anger, vowing that he will find a way to fix the scale and honor his promise. Eugene, realizing he pushed too far, backs off with a nervous sweat. He tries to defuse the situation with a smirk, teasing that being tethered together isn't all that bad. Especially in such a dark and lonely place, where having someone close might be fun. He coughs awkwardly to clear the air, and Gavis turns away to lead the march. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoes through the cavern. "Aya!" Both warriors freeze. The sound is coming from the two large golden chests lying next to the unconscious Abaddon. A rhythmic, mournful wailing fills the air. Eugene asks if Gavis hears a child crying. Gavis rushes to the boxes and throws the lid of one open. Both men recoil in shock. Inside the chest, wrapped in simple cloth, are two small, silver-haired human babies. Eugene is baffled, piecing together the reality of the situation. He realizes that the weapons everyone was fighting over are actually these two children. He turns a sharp, accusatory glare on the Celestial, asking when the pigeonheads got into the business of human trafficking. Gavis ignores the insult, his focus shifting to the gravity of the discovery. He states that they need to link up with the sacred reinforcements immediately, reasoning that if these children fall into the hands of the Hypogeans, they will surely be twisted into weapons of destruction. Eugene looks down at the infants skeptically, asking if ending up in the hands of the Celestials really promises them a better fate. Gavis stands firm on his morals, declaring that new lives deserve respect. He insists that if the deities knew these weapons were actually children, they would never allow them to become tools of war. Eugene laughs darkly at this naivety. He suggests that the Celestials' companions probably knew all along. He deduces the true nature of the Celestials' orders: if the weapons fall into enemy hands, destroy them outright. A flashback image flashes through the Celestial's mind, a hooded commander giving that exact order. If the worst happens, destroyed the two weapons on the spot. The Celestial's face tightens with conflict, but he refuses to accept Eugene's cynicism. He scoops the babies up into his arms, sheltering them. He insists that his superiors couldn't have known the weapons were children. Eugene just watches him with a knowing smirk. Deciding to focus on survival, Gavis orders them to move out. He holds the bundle of children close to his chest. Eugene, however, recoils, telling the pigeonhead to keep his distance because he can't stand human kids. They begin to trek through the dark cavern, the magical tether stretching between the reluctant guardian and the child-hating demon. The peace is short-lived. One of the babies wakes up and lets out a wail, triggering the other to scream as well. The noise is deafening in the enclosed space. Gavis panics, completely out of his depth. Eugene covers his ears, complaining about their rotten luck and asking if the things are hungry. Gavis yells back that he has no idea. The crying intensifies, and Eugene demands Gavis think of something fast. The golden-haired warrior looks helpless, admitting he is clueless. Suddenly, the Celestial's expression shifts from panic to sharp alertness. He stops cold, his eyes narrowing. He tells the Hypogean that something feels off. Behind them, in the deep shadows of the cave, a massive, spiked silhouette rises silently. Two glowing red eyes ignite in the darkness, towering over the unsuspecting pair. Gavis asks if Eugene feels a strange aura. The silence of the cavern is shattered by a deep, rumbling voice that vibrates through the stone walls. A massive dragon, its scales the color of tempered steel and its eyes glowing with a malevolent crimson light, rouses from its sleep. It lifts its heavy head, towering over the intruders who have dared to disturb its rest. The beast's gaze sweeps over the small group, analyzing them with ancient intelligence. It mutters to itself, noting the strange composition of the party. A Celestial, a Hypogean, and something else that catches its attention. The dragon's slit pupils dilate as it focuses on the two small children huddled on the ground. It senses something vile emanating from them, growling that these two reek of calamity and dread. The beast identifies the stench of ancient magic clinging to the infants, a scent that seems to offend its very existence. With a snarl that exposes rows of razor-sharp teeth, the dragon commands the adults to leave the children and be gone, its mercy extending only to those untainted by the magic it despises. Gavis steps forward, raising a hand in a gesture of peace. He addresses the creature as a great dragon, assuring it that they mean no offense and did not intend to trespass. He acknowledges that the children are indeed peculiar, but tries to reason that the deities will surely take care of them. However, his diplomatic approach falls on deaf ears. The dragon, uninterested in the excuses of mortals or gods, takes a massive, lung-expanding breath, the air whistling as it is sucked into the creature's chest. Realizing that negotiation has failed instantly, Gavis clutches his chest in panic and screams for his companions to let them go. But the warning comes too late for more talk. The dragon unleashes a terrifying roar, a shockwave of sound and force that blasts through the cavern. The sheer pressure of the exhales sends debris flying and forces the group to scramble for footing. Amidst the chaos, Eugene looks at Gavis with a mix of disbelief and mockery. He shouts over the din, asking if the pigeonhead is actually trying to reason with the dragon. He points out that dragons are known for their legendary stubbornness, even more so than Gavis himself. Gavis, realizing the futility of his words, grabs one of the silver-haired babies, clutching the child protectively against his armor. He yells that talking sense into the beast won't work and demands Eugene take the other child so they can run. The cavern begins to shake violently as the dragon attacks. A massive explosion of energy strikes the spot where they just stood, sending a plume of smoke and rock into the air. Eugene, now carrying the second baby, sprints alongside Gavis. Gavis questions why the beast is so hostile toward the children. As they navigate the falling debris, Eugene explains the dark history. He reveals that ancient humans once enslaved dragons using their magic. It is a source of deep shame for the species, and as a result, dragons loathe all of humanity's magical creations. He looks down at the wide-eyed infant in his arms, grimly noting that these children are obviously products of that ancient human magic. The dragon won't have the patience for any long-winded explanations. Ahead of them, a beam of light cuts through the gloom. Eugene spots it and shouts that the exit is over there. They sprint toward the natural archway, the cave ceiling crumbling behind them with a deafening rumble. But their hope for a quick escape is dashed as they burst out of the tunnel. Instead of a forest or a field, they find themselves on a precarious ledge overlooking a sea of magma. The orange glow of the lava illuminates the cavern, casting long, dancing shadows. Eugene stares out at the molten Hell's Cape, cursing and asking why the dragon had to build its nest so close to the lava. There is no time to ponder dragon architecture. Behind them, the rock face shatters as the dragon bursts through the wall, its massive claws gripping the stone. It roars again, cursing the despicable humans who created the magic it hates. Gavis and Eugene are trapped on the edge, the heat rising from below and the monster closing in from behind. Gavis looks frantically for a way across the chasm. The path ahead is broken, consisting of isolated pillars of rock rising from the lava. As he was about to fall, Eugene grabs Gavis' hand. But the baby falls from the Gavis's hand. Baby was stuck on the rock sleeping. Gavis determined that he has to save him. Eugene scoffs. Pigeonhead, don't act rashly. He turns to Eugene, his face set with grim determination, and says he has an idea. He orders the Hypogean to stay where he is and not move. The tension is palpable as Eugene looks on in confusion at Gavis's erratic movements, demanding to know what he is up to now. Ignoring the plea to stop and talk, Gavis impulsively leaps away, leaving Eugene shouting for him to wait. Gavis lands with a heavy thwack on a lower ledge, composing himself quickly after the drop. From the ledge above, Eugene peers down, exasperated by the recklessness he is witnessing. He calls out, addressing Gavis as Pigeonhead, and sarcastically asks if this is another one of his genius ideas. He accuses Gavis of trying to take him to the grave with him, expressing deep skepticism about the safety of this escape route. Ignoring the complaints, Gavis projects a beam of blue magical energy upward, tethering it to the Eugene's hand above to create a swing. Before launching himself, Gavis reaches out and firmly grabs the infant from Cliff, ensuring the child is secured against his chest. With the child safe in his grasp, Gavis swings across the gaping chasm, leaving Eugene alone on the other side. Gavis lands gracefully on a distant platform with another solid thwack. Turning back to his hesitant ally, he shouts across the void, instructing Eugene to do exactly what he just did. Terrified by the prospect of the jump, Eugene yells back that Gavis is insane, but he leaps nonetheless. As he plummets through the air, he screams in panic, his red cape fluttering wildly behind him. Meanwhile, Gavis stands firm on the landing zone, holding the baby close and watching the chaotic descent. Eugene crashes onto the lava, his cape burning. The child started to laugh. Eugene, scrambling to regain his footing, notices the child's reaction. He laughs in disbelief, finding it interesting that the child shows no fear despite the danger. Leaning in, he admits that he is starting to like the little rascal. However, the moment is cut short as Eugene realizes the ground beneath him is scorching hot. He begins to hop frantically, yelling, "Hot! Hot!" as smoke rises from his boots. Seeing Eugene dance in pain, the baby bursts into laughter again. Eugene, annoyed by the mockery, snaps back, asking if the child takes pleasure in others' misery, reaffirming his belief that he hates human children. Gavis interrupts the bickering, urging them to keep swinging across to make further progress. After a series of arduous jumps, the trio finally scrambles up a ledge, with Gavis declaring that they have finally made it to safety. Their relief is shattered instantly by a deafening roar that echoes through the canyon. A massive, shadowy beast with glowing red eyes lunges from the rocks above. Gavis shouts a warning to look out as the creature strikes the canyon walls, triggering a collapse. A massive boom resounds as boulders and debris rain down upon them. In a split-second reaction, Eugene dives forward, wrapping his body and cape around the baby to shield the child from the crushing impact. Silence returns to the canyon as the dust settles. Eugene lies on the ground, his red cloak draped over the child, having taken the brunt of the fall. Eugene looks up at his savior, realizing what happened. He thanks Pigeonhead, admitting that if Gavis hadn't leaped to save him, he might have perished. Gavis, flustered and sweating, dismisses the gratitude, claiming he simply didn't want to perish along with them. Recognizing they are exhausted, Gavis states they need to find a safe place to rest before setting off again tomorrow. They eventually spot a small cave entrance nestled in the rock face. As they prepare to enter, Eugene regains his sarcastic composure, bowing dramatically and telling the Almighty Celestial that he is at his command. The group moves into the shadows of the cave, safe for the moment but weary from their narrow escape. In a desolate, sun-scorched wasteland, the silence is broken only by the soft shifting of earth. A small, purple, multi-eyed spider emerges from the dry soil, its mandibles twitching as it surveys the barren landscape. Suddenly, a small hand slams down with a heavy thwack, pinning the creature against the dirt. A silver-haired toddler laughs with innocent delight, holding the squirming arachnid captive, while her twin brother sleeps soundly nearby on the hard ground. Nearby, resting beneath the skeletal remains of a withered tree, Eugene sits with a red leather-bound journal. He writes with a quill, noting that he cannot recall the date, though the weather remains sunny. His internal monologue spills onto the page as he eyes his companion. He confesses a dreadful thought, that the great celestial accompanying him might not be a savior, but a child trafficker. Eugene justifies this paranoia by observing that the so-called ancient weapons they are guarding are nothing more than little demon children who are still very much in their milk-drinking phase. Across the campsite, Gavis stirs a bubbling pot of white porridge over a campfire. He looks up in confusion as a crunching sound reaches his ears. To his horror, the little girl has shoved the purple spider into her mouth and is happily chewing on it. Gavis rushes over, shouting in panic as he pries the crushed arachnid from the toddler's grip. He turns his frustration toward Eugene, demanding to know why the Hypogean isn't watching the children. Eugene, still holding his journal, looks up with a relaxed, almost bored expression, suggesting that the youngster should be allowed to play freely and enjoy herself. Gavis is not amused. He holds the two toddlers close, his face etched with anxiety. Eugene calls him Pigeonhead and tells him to relax, closing his book with a thud. But Gavis insists they cannot let their guard down, warning that someone named Conrad might show up at any minute. He looks down at the babies in his arms, murmuring that they might not be able to handle another surprise. Eugene stands up, complaining that Gavis is too uptight and that he has been bored to death. He points out the absurdity of their situation. A Hypogean and a Celestial, natural opposites, trying to work together. As he speaks, Eugene gifts a paper spider to the baby. Eugene silences her with a finger to his lips, sharing a conspiratorial moment with the chaotic toddler. Later, the porridge bubbles thickly in the iron pot. Gavis carefully feeds the boy, telling Eugene that he will honor his promise to break the spell on them. However, he admits that the Scales of benevolence is a very intricate magic and not easily fixed. Eugene interrupts, claiming he knows a dwarf who is a whiz at fixing things. He explains that the artisan lives nearby in Saltwater, a town they must pass through on their way to the cradle of truth. Eugene describes Saltwater as a place known for its black market and rare goods, confident the dwarf can fix anything. Gavis is skeptical, doubting a mere dwarf has the skill to repair a divine creation. Eugene scoffs, telling the deity not to be so quick to judge mortals, as their creativity can be surprising. The two babies laugh as the adults bicker, finding the argument entertaining. The group arrives at Saltwater, a bustling town built with timber and stone, where laundry hangs between buildings and the air smells of commerce and dust. Eugene and Gavis, now wearing hooded cloaks to conceal their identities, walk through the cobblestone streets. They approach a heavy wooden door and knock. A gruff voice from inside shouts that he isn't fixing anything today and tells them to move on. Ignoring the refusal, they open the door and step inside. Sitting behind a large wooden desk filled with books and tools is a dwarf with a thick black beard and goggles. He glares at the intruders, asking if they are deaf. Eugene steps forward. He places a broken, intricate mechanical gear on the desk. The dwarf's eyes widen as he recognizes the object, muttering that he never thought he would see it again in his lifetime. He looks up at the dark-haired visitor and says his name, Eugene. Eugene greets the dwarf, Kadrin, with a smirk. Kadrin opens a wooden drawer to reveal a glowing red cube adorned with golden celestial rings. Eugene hands the broken gear over, completing the transaction. Kadrin grumbles, accepting the job, but warns Eugene to treat the device well once it is fixed. He adds that having a Hypogean around messes with his business. Eugene dismisses the complaint with a casual wave. Kadrin observes the group, noting that from the looks of it, Eugene has stumbled into more trouble. Eugene admits it is. Maybe a little bit. The tension in the room is broken by the sound of laughter. The two toddlers have climbed onto the desk and are happily tugging at Kadrin's braided beard. The dwarf, rather than being angry, looks overwhelmed by the sudden assault of cuteness. Eugene seizes the moment to bring up the real reason they are there, asking Kadrin to look at something else. Gavis steps forward, holding a golden artifact that radiates faint light. Kadrin examines the divine object through a magnifying glass. He diagnoses that the magic circuits inside are damaged, confirming it is indeed a divine creation. However, he declares it is not a big issue and will take half a day to fix. He hops off his chair and tells Gavis to follow him, then points a callous finger at Eugene, ordering the Hypogean to stay downstairs and watch the shop. Kadrin cites his rules. When he is fixing something, it is just him and the owner. Eugene sighs, remarking that he is lucky the shop is small, or he would be stuck there forever. Upstairs, Kadrin leads Gavis into a workshop cluttered with blueprints and tools. Back in the workshop, Kadrin comments that Eugene seems to have changed quite a bit. Gavis asks Kadrin how the Hypogean is different from before. Kadrin, working on the golden artifact, notes that Eugene never brought a friend before. Gavis quickly corrects him, stating they are not friends, but enemies forced to team up by circumstance. He adds that he is a Celestial and Eugene is a Hypogean, making their alliance purely pragmatic. Kadrin scoffs, adjusting his goggles. He says that while he might be a dwarf without the immortality of a god or demon, he has dealt with all kinds in his time, and knows how to read people. He accuses the gods of always messing with fancy nonsense. He bitterly remarks that if the deities were more practical, maybe the Hypogeans wouldn't be busting out of the barred gate, and his own home wouldn't be in ruins. Gavis's expression softens with sympathy. He apologizes for the dwarves' plight but presses the issue. If Kadrin knows it was the Hypogeans who wrecked his homeland, why would he help Eugene? Why help a Hypogean? Kadrin pauses his work, the delicate tools steady in his rough hands. He explains that the world isn't just black and white, as the deities would have people think. He points out that Saltwater Town is full of illicit deals and back-alley nonsense, but it is also the only refuge for outcasts like him who are unwanted everywhere else. He tells Gavis that he is helping Eugene because he owes him a favor. He looks up, his gaze firm, and states that just as Celestials aren't always noble and selfless, Hypogeans aren't always rotten to the core. Gavis touches his chin thoughtfully, asking if Cadron is trying to say that Eugene is a good Hypogean. Cadron looks down at the golden artifact, his face shadowed by memory. He admits he cannot vouch for Eugene's character entirely, but he knows for a fact that Eugene helped his people. The dwarf's voice carries the weight of history as he whispers that the event in question was many years ago. The story plunges into a sepia-toned memory, taking us back many years to a temporary dwarven encampment. Inside a sturdy tent, the atmosphere is thick with tension. A dwarf report indicates that it has been 15 days since the clan fled, and the relentless Hypogean army is catching up. The logistics are grim. Taking the main road would be faster, but it would leave them exposed to the enemy army, while the smaller paths will drain their dwindling supplies. The dwarf leader, a grizzled figure with an eye patch and a braided gray beard, sighs heavily. He asks his subordinate where Cadron has gone. Upon hearing that Cadron is off by himself outside the camp, the leader decides to let him be. He holds up a heavy, gear-shaped necklace made of silver iron, noting that his son needs time to prepare himself to inherit the mithril necklace and continue the clan's craft in the future. Deep in the woods at the forest's edge, a younger, black-bearded Cadron sits alone against a tree. He is engrossed in a complex mechanical puzzle box, his large hands surprisingly delicate as he manipulates the pieces. With a satisfying series of clicks, the puzzle aligns. Suddenly, a voice from the canopy above breaks his concentration, asking what he is holding. Startled, Cadron looks up to see a pale figure with dark hair and pointed ears hanging upside down from a branch like a bat. Before Cadron can demand an identity, the stranger drops from the tree, landing gracefully on his feet. It is a younger Eugene, wearing a black and crimson outfit. With a casual smile, he asks if he can try the puzzle out. He grins, impressed, and asks if there is something Cadron wants in exchange for the entertainment. But Cadron's face has turned to stone. He points a trembling finger at the stranger, realizing with horror that he is speaking to a Hypogean. Cadron shouts, calling him a foul creature and accusing his kind of destroying the dwarves' home and forcing them into exile. Eugene raises his hands in a mock surrender, sweating slightly, and offers to leave. He mutters that dwarves are such a dull, hot-headed, and stubborn lot. However, as he turns away, he admits that it is hard to believe such stubborn people make such fun things. The conversation is cut short by a thunderous boom. Cadron's eyes go wide as he screams for his father. He rushes back toward the encampment, where chaos has erupted. The dwarves scramble to prepare their cannons, but the smoke clears to reveal a nightmare. A massive, winged demon general with glowing blue eyes and dark gray skin is marching through their defenses. The monster roars, swinging a jagged weapon that smashes through the timber barricades. Cadron arrives just in time to see the demon general lift the dwarf leader off the ground by his head. The general rips the mithril necklace from the leader's neck, declaring that the bounty is his. Cadron watches in frozen horror, praying to the mountain gods not to turn away. Just as the general prepares to crush the leader, a streak of purple energy tears through the sky with a sharp hissing sound. Thud. The blast slams into the demon, sending him staggering back. Eugene stands with his hand extended, dark energy smoking from his fingertips. Eugene looks down with a smirk, apologizing to the little dwarf, but noting he might be disappointed. He jokes that the pigeonheads, his derogatory term for celestials, are probably too busy making pillows out of feathers to help, so he can't count on them. The demon general, recovering from the blow, looks up in confusion. He recognizes Eugene and demands to know why he is helping lowly mortals. Eugene standing between the monster and the dwarves. With a nonchalant expression, he answers simply, "Because they make fun things." He adds that without their creations, there would be no joy in this world. The general finds this reason tedious and orders his troops to kill them all. But Eugene is faster. He turns to Cadron and the other dwarves, shouting at them to run. With a dramatic flair, Eugene unleashes a massive explosion of dark magic, obliterating the attacking force in a blinding flash of purple light. Some time later, in the quiet aftermath of the battle, Cadron sits alone at the base of a tree, looking exhausted. Eugene pops up suddenly, leaning in with a cheerful grin to announce he is back. Cadron, startled again, looks at the Hypogean. He grumbles that he didn't ask for help, but grudgingly admits that Eugene saved his people. Cadron reminds him that he knows Hypogeans don't grant favors for free, and Cadron, resigned to a terrible fate, clutches his chest and tells Eugene to take his soul, asserting that dwarves don't owe anyone. Eugene looks genuinely confused, asking why on earth he would want a soul. He calls it uninteresting and dismisses the offer with a yawn. Instead, he points a sharp claw at the pouch on Cadron's belt. He says he just wants the puzzle box. As Cadron stares in disbelief, Eugene clarifies his price. He wants the toy now, and he wants Cadron to craft more fun things in the future. The memory fades, dissolving into the reality of the present day. Eugene is lying on the floor of Cadron's shop in Saltwater, yawning loudly. He complains about the wait, asking if fixing things always takes this long. Upstairs, a brilliant golden light erupts, signaling the work is done. The celestial, Gavis, stands holding the intricate golden artifact, the Scales of Benevolence, which is now glowing with restored power. The light washes over the room, and the curse binding them is lifted. Gavis descends the stairs, telling Eugene the spell is broken and he can go now. Eugene stands up, dusting off his cloak. He smirks at the celestial, asking if he is really letting him off the hook and warning him not to regret it. Gavis closes his eyes and replies with dignity that it is his code to keep his word, even if the recipient is a Hypogean. Eugene scoffs, calling him a stick in the mud. Outside the shop, the group prepares to part ways. The twin toddlers wave enthusiastically at Eugene. Eugene tells Gavis to take care of the two troublemakers, specifically pointing out the little girl who is mischievous like the Hypogean. He also reminds him to ensure they have enough food, as they make a fuss when hungry. Eugene turns his back, waving a hand dismissively as he walks away into the barren landscape. He says he is off. Gavis watches him go, his expression softening. He calls out one last time, introducing himself simply as Gavis. Eugene doesn't stop or turn around. He just raises a hand and replies, "I know, Pigeonhead." As the Hypogean disappears into the distance, the Celestial smiles warmly and whispers a quiet thank you to his enemy, marking the end of their strange alliance. Under the pale, expansive sky of a desolate wasteland, a brief moment of tranquility settles over the group. Gavis, the Celestial, sits on the dry earth, patiently spooning porridge to the silver-haired twins. The children seem content, with one of them giggling while holding a small purple creature, unaware of the desolate world around them. Gavis remembers Eugene shushing the little girl. A massive explosion erupts from the ground, sending rocks and dust flying. The force of the blast knocks over the bowl of porridge, spilling it into the dirt. Gavis immediately curls his body around the twins, shielding them from the debris as a shadow falls over them. Emerging from the smoke is a towering, winged demon with dark gray skin and glowing blue eyes. He bellows that he has found them and demands Gavis hand over the children. Gavis stares up in shock, recognizing the threat, but he has no time to react before the demon roars and swings a massive, jagged weapon. Gavis summons a burst of golden light to deflect the blow, but the impact is heavy. He is thrown backward, skidding against the rough terrain. He crashes into a large boulder, coughing up blood as the impact rattles his bones. He barely manages to keep his grip on the frightened infants. The demon general looms over the fallen celestial, raising his weapon for a killing strike. Gavis, exhausted and cornered, braces for the end. Suddenly, a streak of crimson energy tears through the air. Thud. The blast slams into the demon's weapon, knocking it off course. Eugene steps into the fray, surrounded by floating red cubes etched with glowing golden patterns. He smirks, remarking that he seems to have messed up. "Comrades!" plans again. The demon general growls, recognizing the Hypogean traitor, and orders his minions to kill them all. Gavis warns kids to stay hidden behind the rocks and leaps into action. The battlefield becomes a chaotic mix of opposing magics. Eugene manipulates his crimson cubes, sending them crashing into the enemy ranks, while Gavis, finding his second wind, unleashes waves of holy golden light. The two sworn enemies fight in perfect synchronization, their contrasting powers overwhelming the demonic soldiers. Eugene's dark energy shreds through the attackers, and with a final, massive blast of red lightning, the enemy forces are devastated. Seeing his troops decimated, the demon general barks a retreat, flying off into the distance to escape the onslaught. In the quiet aftermath, Eugene and Gavis stand amidst the rubble, catching their breath. Gavis turns to the Hypogean, asking why he intervened. Eugene brushes off the gratitude, claiming he isn't there to rescue him but simply to settle things with Conrad. Despite the deflection, Gavis thanks him sincerely. Eugene cracks a rare smile, though he quickly tells Gavis to stop grinning back because it looks weird. Their victory is short-lived as the twins begin to wail. Gavis rushes to them, his face falling as he realizes they are pale and their breathing is shallow. He understands now that Conrad must have injured them during the initial ambush. The realization hits him hard. These are not just children. His mentor had described them as ancient weapons that rely on magic to survive. Without a recharge, they will die. Gavis cradles one of the infants, deciding to infuse them with his own magic to keep them alive. He begins the transfer, his golden aura enveloping the child. However, Eugene interrupts, grabbing his shoulder. He warns Gavis that he is already drained from the fight and that trying to power both weapons at once will kill him. Without waiting for permission, Eugene reaches out and takes the little girl into his arms. He declares that he will take one of them. Dark, crimson energy flows from his hands, gently enveloping the toddler. Gavis watches in surprise as the Hypogean shares his life force. The twins calm down almost immediately, their color returning as they absorb the magical energy. Eugene winces slightly, noting that the pesky kids are draining a significant amount of his power. Once the children are stable, Gavis announces his plan. He must take them to the Cradle of Truth to reunite them with his people, believing the Celestials will know how to help them. Eugene looks skeptical, muttering that the children might not be who Gavis thinks they are. However, seeing Gavis's determination, Eugene stops arguing. Gavis tries to leave, but Eugene steps in his path. Eugene suggests that since he is there he will stick around for some time. Gavis points out that if the Celestials catch sight of a Hypogean, they won't let him slip away. More importantly, Eugene argues that the kids need constant energy, and Gavis cannot sustain them alone in his weakened state. Eugene insists on coming along, claiming he is resourceful and will find a way out of the enemy territory later. Gavis looks at his former enemy, seeing the logic and the unexpected kindness in his offer. He smiles and thanks Eugene once more. Under the cover of a storm-ravaged night, two figures sprint through the wilderness, their heavy boots splashing through mud and water. The urgency of their escape is masked by the thunder overhead. Despite their opposing natures, they are united by the precious cargo they carry, two swaddled infants. The wind howls around them as they finally skid to a halt, overlooking a breathtaking valley illuminated by ethereal light. A massive, crystalline formation rises from the center of the basin, glowing with a divine energy. This is the Cradle of Truth. Gavis turns to his companion, his expression serious. He tells Eugene that it is time for him to go, as his people will arrive soon. He hands the bundle he is carrying, a small child with tiny red horns, over to Gavis, instructing him to take good care of them. Gavis, now holding both the horned child and a second infant with a glowing halo, looks concerned. But before they can part ways, a dark, purple energy manifests in the sky above them. A voice booms out, declaring that no one is leaving. From the ridge above, a massive, hulking warrior clad in dark armor leaps down, his landing shaking the ground. Behind him, an army of Hypogean soldiers emerges. The large leader, a terrifying creature with jagged horns and blue eyes, sneers at Eugene. Conrad steps forward with a sinister smile, Eugene noting that his timing is perfect as always. The enemy forces surround them, blocking any path to the cradle. The Hypogean soldiers charge, swinging massive clubs. Gavis and Eugene stand back to back. Celestial Morgana unleashes a blast of green and yellow energy, knocking the attackers back with explosive force. The battle is frantic. Celestial Morgana swings her staff and a beam of light engulfs Conrad. Conrad issues a command to fall back. He and all his minions started to run away. Eugene taunts the attackers, shouting that they are tougher than they thought. A spear descends from the heavens, slamming into the ground between the combatants. The battlefield falls silent. High above, winged figures in gleaming white and gold armor descend. They are celestials, led by an imposing figure with large wings and a face concealed by a hood and mask. The leader of the celestials hovers before them. Gavis looks up, recognition dawning on his face. He calls out, addressing the figure as, "Teacher." It is Celestial Morgana. She descends, her glowing eyes fixing on Gavis. She asks him pointedly if he is protecting a Hypogean. Gavis shouted that Eugene may be a Hypogean, but he didn't done anything wrong. He pointed out that Eugene is using his power to keep the girl alive throughout the journey. Her gaze then shifts to the bundles in Gavis's arms. She coldly remarks that it is unfortunate that one of the weapons got tainted by the Hypogean's power. She looks at the horned baby girl with disdain, but then notices the boy with the halo, remarking that at least the other one is still pure. Gavis, confused and desperate, asks his teacher how she knew these two kids were the weapons. Morgana ignores the question and issues a command that freezes Gavis in place. She orders him to kill the Hypogean and the girl tainted by it. She then demands he hand over the boy so she can take him to the Cradle of Truth. Morgana points toward the glowing crystal in the valley. She explains that the Cradle of Truth senses the weakness of the weapon and is gathering energy, waiting for their return. She insists this is their only chance to restore him. Her soldiers step forward, spears ready, as she demands Gavis give her the boy immediately. Gavis looks down at the children. He thinks back to their journey. He remembers the moments Eugene shared with the kids. Gavis realizes that Eugene and dwarf named Katrin were right all along. He speaks up, his voice firm. He asserts that not all Hypogeans are entirely evil, just as not all Celestials are noble. He explains that he foresaw his teacher might give such an order, and he tried to shun those thoughts because he was unsure of what choice he would make. Eugene, standing behind him, watches Gavis with a mix of surprise and affection, muttering "pigeonhead" under his breath. Gavis looks Morgana in the eye and delivers his answer. He refuses. He declares he will not harm the girl or Eugene, and he will not hand the boy over to her. Morgana sighs, disappointed. She tells Gavis she had high hopes for him as her student, and asks if he is really willing to oppose the gods. Gavis summons his own magical weapon, a staff that mirrors the scale motif. He clarifies that he is not trying to oppose the gods, he just wants to do what feels right. He turns his back to the enemy and whispers to Eugene. He orders Eugene to take the children into the ruins and use its power to heal them. He tells him to escape as far as possible, while he holds the Celestials off. Eugene looks at Gavis's back, a smirk crossing his face. He chuckles and says he cannot follow that lead this time. Red energy swirls around Eugene as he summons a dark cube-like artifact. He refuses to leave. Morgana warns soldiers not to interfere, declaring she will take care of this herself. She launches herself forward with blinding speed. Gavis's eyes glow as he braces for impact. Morgana strikes, her spear clashing against Gavis's defenses with a deafening boom. She is relentless, her attacks forcing Gavis backward. She swings her weapon, smashing through Gavis's magical barrier. Eugene, clutching the children, is shielded by Gavis, but the impact is devastating. Morgana hovers above them, her power overwhelming. Eugene curses, realizing the gap in their strength. Eugene, seeing their desperate situation, yells at Gavis to listen. He says he has an idea and demands Gavis give him his scales. Gavis is confused, asking what for, but Eugene screams at him to stop asking and just give them to him if he wants to save the children. Trusting his friend, Gavis throws his golden staff weapon to the Hypogean. Morgana dives again, spear aimed to kill. Eugene steps in front of the attack. A sickening crunch echoes as the spear pierces through. Blood spatters across the ground. Morgana stands over them, her weapon seemingly finding its mark. But then, a strange sparkle of blue energy radiates from her armor. Eugene, despite being injured, laughs. Eugene is impaled, blood dripping from his mouth, but he grins wildly. He yells at Gavis to go and take the children into the ruins. Gavis hesitates, horrified by Eugene's sacrifice. Eugene shouts that he has, bound, with her. Referring to the child or perhaps Morgana herself through a spell, and claims she won't dare harm him now. He screams at Gavis to save the children. Gavis turns and runs, tears in his eyes. He promises to come back for Eugene. He sprints toward the light of the cradle. Morgana commands her knights to chase them. The armored soldiers pursue Gavis across the grassy plains. Just as he nears the safety of the energy field, a knight swings a heavy shield, smashing into Gavis's back. A bone-breaking crack sounds out. Gavis falls face first into the dirt, the babies tumbling from his grip. He frantically scrambles to cover them with his body as the knights surround him, weapons raised for the execution. But as the knights strike, the children react. They started to shine bright and lifted off the ground. A massive explosion erupts from the infants. The shockwave blasts the knights backward, sending them flying like ragdolls. The light consumes everything, signaling the awakening of the weapons. The scene shifts to several days later. A convoy of celestial knights is marching through the countryside. In the center, a magical prison wagon carries a captive. It is Eugene. He lies casually on the floor of the cage, looking bored. He calls out to the knights, calling them pigeonheads, and complains that he is thirsty and needs water. A knight bangs on the bars, ordering the Hypogean to behave. Eugene just smiles, completely at ease. He tells the knight to relax, pointing out that they won't hit him. He reminds them that he is bound to their master. He warns that if he is harmed, their master suffers too. The knight, frustrated, is told by a superior, Morgana, who is riding ahead, to ignore the prisoner and keep moving. Suddenly, a blast of energy strikes the front of the convoy. An explosion rips through the formation, sending knights and debris into the air. The convoy comes to a chaotic halt. Inside the cage, Eugene's grin widens. He looks toward the source of the attack and speaks to the arrival. "You took your time, pigeonhead,"